Nathan Grant, a billionaire known for his real estate empire and cold demeanor, was driving through a remote hillside area in the middle of a thunderstorm. His luxury SUV cut through the winding road as rain hammered the windshield. He had taken this path to clear his mind after a high-profile business betrayal that rocked his trust in people. Suddenly, through the pouring rain, Nathan noticed a faint flicker of light coming from an old, run-down house perched on the hillside. The structure looked abandoned, its windows shattered, vines creeping up the cracked walls. But the light inside was unmistakable, and something about it tugged at his conscience. Despite his instincts to keep going, he stopped the car, grabbed a flashlight, and climbed toward the house through mud and overgrown weeds. As thunder cracked overhead, Nathan stepped onto the creaky porch and heard something that made his blood freeze. It was the faint sound of crying, tiny, desperate cries. Babies. Nathan slowly pushed open the broken door. It groaned under its own weight, revealing a dusty, cobwebbed interior that reeked of mildew and abandonment. The dim light flickered from a rusted kerosene lamp sitting atop a cracked wooden table. The air was thick and damp, but the soft, rhythmic crying grew louder, guiding him deeper into the house. He stepped over shattered glass and broken floorboards, his flashlight beam darting across the room until it landed on something in the far corner. Two tiny bundles swaddled in tattered blankets lay inside a makeshift crib, actually an old wooden drawer padded with towels. The babies, no older than a few months, had flushed cheeks and tear-filled eyes. One had a small teddy bear clutched tightly, the other a bottle long emptied of milk. Nathan froze. He was a billionaire, but in that moment, all his money meant nothing. These children were alone, cold, hungry, and helpless. With trembling hands, he knelt beside them. "Who left you here?" he whispered, feeling a lump rise in his throat. It was the first time in years he had felt something stir in his heart. Just then, a distant rustle from upstairs made him snap his head up. He wasn't alone in the house. Nathan stood still, ears straining. The sound came again, a faint thump, followed by the creak of floorboards above. Someone or something was moving upstairs. He looked back at the twins. Their crying had quieted to soft whimpers as they stared up at him, eyes wide with innocence. He couldn't leave them, not even for a moment. Grabbing his phone, Nathan tried calling for help, no signal. The storm had knocked out service. Determined to protect the children, he gently picked up both babies, cradling them carefully in his arms. One of them clung to his coat instinctively. Nathan's heart clenched. Then he heard it. Heavy, uneven, footsteps on the stairs. Nathan backed into the corner, scanning the room for anything he could use as a weapon. His hand found a rusted crowbar lying near the fireplace. The footsteps stopped just beyond the doorway. Nathan held his breath. Then the door slowly creaked open. A shadow loomed across the wall, distorted by the flickering light. But instead of a threat, a gaunt, wild-eyed woman appeared in the doorway. Her clothes torn, hair matted, and face pale from exhaustion and fear. She looked more like a ghost than a person. Her eyes locked onto the babies in Nathan's arms, and she gasped, "Please, don't hurt them. They're all I have left." The woman stumbled forward, nearly collapsing onto the dusty floor. Nathan tightened his grip on the babies, cautious but confused. "I'm their mother," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, don't take them." Nathan hesitated, watching her frail figure tremble. She looked malnourished, with dark circles under her eyes and dried blood on her hands. Her desperation was real, raw. "I found them alone," he said firmly. "In a place like this, during a storm." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I had to leave to find food. I was only gone a short while, but then I got dizzy, I fell, I thought I'd never make it back. I thought I'd die." Nathan's mind raced. Who was this woman? Why was she hiding in a rotting house with infants? "You shouldn't be here," he said. "This place is falling apart. You and your babies need medical help, now." She crawled toward him, weakly clutching his coat. "Please, don't call the police, just help my babies. Don't let them be taken from me." Her voice cracked with a pain that pierced Nathan's guarded heart. He could see she wasn't a criminal. She was a mother on the edge of losing everything. He looked down at the twins, then back at the woman. "You'll come with me, all of you," he said. "We're getting out of here tonight." Nathan helped the woman to her feet, carefully balancing the twins in one arm. She winced from the pain in her leg, clearly injured from her fall. He draped her free arm over his shoulder and led them slowly through the decaying house toward the exit. Every step was a challenge. Broken floorboards, puddles from the leaking ceiling, and howling wind outside. As they reached the front door, lightning flashed, revealing the dense forest and muddy path they would need to cross to reach his SUV. "Can you make it?" Nathan asked. "I'll try," she breathed, her voice weak. With the twins bundled close and protected under his coat, Nathan led her through the storm. Rain poured down in sheets, soaking them instantly. The mud pulled at their shoes, and the woman stumbled often, but Nathan never let go. At last, the headlights of the SUV came into view, slicing through the darkness like a beacon. He opened the back seat and gently placed the babies down on the leather cushions, wrapping them in dry blankets from his emergency kit. Then he helped the woman into the front seat, securing her with trembling hands. As he closed the door and took the driver's seat, he glanced at the rearview mirror. The twins stared back at him, safe for now. Nathan hit the gas. They needed to find shelter, real shelter, before the night claimed any more lives. Nathan drove carefully through the storm, the tires of his SUV skidding on the wet gravel. The babies had stopped crying, soothed by warmth and motion, but their faces were still pale, their bodies weak. The woman, barely conscious beside him, whispered, "Thank you," before slipping into a deep, exhausted sleep. 10 miles down the hillside, Nathan spotted the faint glow of a mountain lodge he remembered purchasing years ago as a retreat he never used. It was rustic but well-built, remote enough to avoid attention, yet safe and stocked with supplies. He pulled up to the lodge and helped the woman out first, then gently gathered the twins into his arms. Unlocking the heavy front door, he entered a warm, wood-paneled interior. Dusty but intact, the place offered firewood, clean bedding, and emergency food. Nathan laid the babies on a thick blanket by the fireplace and quickly lit a fire. He wrapped them in soft towels and opened formula he found in the pantry, stored there just in case he ever brought family, though he never did. The babies drank greedily. Nathan watched, heart aching. He didn't know who this woman was or what had driven her to the edge of the world. But tonight they were safe, and that had to be enough. For now. Morning broke slowly, the storm now reduced to a light drizzle. The first golden rays of sunlight peeked through the lodge windows, casting a warm glow over the quiet room. Nathan sat near the fireplace, watching the babies sleep peacefully for the first time. The woman stirred on the couch, her eyes fluttering open. She winced but slowly sat up, surprised to see herself covered with a clean blanket, and the babies fed and safe. "You saved us," she murmured. "I couldn't just leave you," Nathan said, pouring her a cup of hot tea. "Now tell me, who are you and why were you living in that place?" She wrapped her fingers around the warm cup, her voice hoarse. "My name is Emily. I used to live in the city. Their father, he died in a car accident just after the twins were born. We lost everything, no money, no family. I had nowhere to go. The old house belonged to my grandparents. It was abandoned, but it was the only shelter I had." She looked down, tears threatening to fall. "I tried to get help, but no one would listen. They said I was irresponsible, unfit. I was afraid they'd take my babies." Nathan's jaw clenched. His mind returned to boardrooms full of people who judged by wealth, not truth. "You're not unfit," he said. "You're just forgotten." Emily met his eyes. For the first time, there was hope in hers. Nathan knew he couldn't just leave Emily and the twins at the lodge forever. The storm was over, but the real challenges were only beginning. He pulled out his phone, finally getting a weak signal, and started making calls. lawyers, social workers, and trusted friends. He explained the situation, promising to keep the family safe. Emily watched, hesitant but trusting. Nathan's world of boardrooms and luxury seemed a distant universe from the raw struggle she faced, but he was determined to bridge the gap. "I'll make sure you have a place to live," Nathan said firmly. "Somewhere safe where the twins can grow up without fear." Emily's eyes filled with tears of relief. Nathan's mind raced with ideas: private nurses, discreet adoption agencies, if she wanted, or even legal guardianship. But most of all, he wanted to give them hope and a future. The billionaire's icy exterior began to thaw. This wasn't a business deal. It was a chance to save lives. As Nathan coordinated help, the peaceful lodge was suddenly interrupted by the sound of a car approaching rapidly through the muddy driveway. Nathan tensed, unsure who would come in this remote area at such an hour. The door burst open and two men in dark suits stepped inside, official-looking but with sharp, suspicious eyes. "We're with Child Protective Services," one announced curtly. "We've had reports about abandoned infants and their mother." Emily's face drained of color. Nathan stepped forward protectively. "I found them in an abandoned house during the storm. They're safe here now," he explained calmly. The officers exchanged glances but didn't back down. They insisted on speaking with Emily privately, wanting to evaluate her fitness as a parent. Nathan watched the exchange carefully, knowing that the fragile trust between him and Emily could shatter in an instant. He promised himself he would do whatever it took to protect this small family from a system that often overlooked love in favor of paperwork. Nathan sat quietly as Emily met with the child protective officers in a small corner of the lodge. The officers questioned her thoroughly about her background, her ability to care for the twins, and the circumstances that led her to the abandoned house. Emily answered honestly but nervously, aware that every word could tip the balance. Nathan's heart pounded as he watched her struggle to prove her worth as a mother to strangers. After the meeting, the officers told Nathan privately that they would recommend temporary custody be granted to a foster family until Emily's situation stabilized. They emphasized that the twins' safety was paramount. Nathan clenched his fists. He refused to let the babies be separated from their mother. That night, as Emily rested, Nathan began drafting legal papers. He contacted his best attorney, determined to fight for full custody and guardianship until Emily could rebuild her life. This was no longer just a rescue. It was a war for a family's future. Nathan's attorney arrived the next day, a sharp and compassionate woman named Claire, who quickly understood the urgency of the case. She assured Nathan that they had strong grounds to petition for temporary guardianship, emphasizing the importance of stability for the babies. Court dates were set swiftly. Nathan and Emily prepared themselves for a grueling fight against a system weary of people without conventional lifestyles. During this time, Nathan stayed by Emily's side, helping her regain strength and dignity. Slowly, she began to trust him, not just as a savior, but as an ally. The twins, meanwhile, thrived in the warmth of the lodge, their innocent laughter beginning to replace the sound of crying. But as the legal battle heated up, Nathan realized this was more than just a courtroom fight. It was a test of humanity, compassion, and the power of a second chance. The day of the first court hearing arrived. Nathan, Emily, and Claire traveled to the city courthouse early in the morning. Emily was nervous but composed, holding the twins close. Inside the sterile courtroom, the judge listened carefully as Claire presented their case. Nathan's quick action to save the babies, Emily's commitment to care for them, and the need to keep the family united. The opposing counsel, representing Child Protective Services, argued for temporary foster care, citing concerns about Emily's past and unstable living conditions. After hours of testimony and evidence, the judge ruled for temporary guardianship to Nathan, with supervised visitation for Emily. Though it wasn't the final victory, it was a step forward, a chance to prove that love could overcome circumstance. Nathan and Emily left the courtroom with mixed emotions, but a shared resolve to fight for their family's future. With temporary guardianship secured, Nathan took immediate action to provide Emily and the twins with a safe home. He purchased a spacious but modest house in a quiet suburb, not far from the city but away from prying eyes. Emily moved in with the babies, overwhelmed but grateful. For the first time in months, she had a place to call home, a sanctuary filled with warmth and possibilities. Nathan visited often, arranging for a private nurse to assist Emily and hiring a childcare specialist to help with the twins' development. Slowly, Emily began to rebuild her confidence, learning to trust herself and others again. The twins flourished, their laughter filling the rooms where once there had been only silence and fear. Nathan watched from a distance, his icy billionaire exterior melting away, replaced by genuine care and hope. Despite the newfound safety, Emily struggled with the trauma of her past. Nightmares haunted her sleep, and moments of despair still crept in during quiet evenings. Nathan, recognizing her pain, arranged for a compassionate therapist to visit regularly. Slowly, Emily began to open up, sharing the grief of losing her husband and the fear of losing her children. The twins, oblivious to the darkness that once clouded their mother's heart, continued to bring light into the home with their innocent smiles and curious eyes. Nathan found himself more involved than ever, attending therapy sessions, supporting Emily, and learning the true meaning of family beyond wealth and status. Together, they faced the healing process, slow, painful, but necessary. News of Nathan's rescue of the twins quickly spread, attracting intense media attention. Paparazzi and reporters descended on the quiet neighborhood, eager to tell the billionaire's heroic story. Emily recoiled from the spotlight, overwhelmed by flashing cameras and intrusive questions. She feared the media would expose her past and put her family at risk once more. Nathan, protective as ever, hired a skilled PR team to manage the narrative and shield Emily and the babies from unwanted scrutiny. Together, they crafted a story focused on hope, courage, and the power of second chances, carefully guarding the family's privacy. The media frenzy was a new challenge, but Nathan was determined to keep the family united and safe through it all. Amid the chaos of public attention, Nathan and Emily's bond grew stronger. What began as a rescue evolved into friendship and mutual respect. Nathan admired Emily's courage and resilience, while Emily saw the kindness beneath his wealthy, guarded exterior. They spent quiet evenings at the house, sharing stories of loss and hope, dreams and fears. The twins brought laughter and light, their presence healing old wounds. Nathan began to envision a future where family was more than blood. It was trust, love, and commitment. Though the path ahead was uncertain, Nathan and Emily faced it together, united by the babies they both cherished. One afternoon, just as Nathan and Emily were enjoying a rare moment of calm, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Nathan opened the door to find a young woman standing nervously on the porch. Emily's sister, Clara, whom Emily hadn't seen or spoken to in years. Clara's eyes were filled with regret and worry. She had heard about Emily's situation through the news and had come to offer help and reconciliation. Emily was hesitant but agreed to let Clara in. As they talked, long-buried family wounds surfaced, but so did a chance for healing and support. Nathan watched as the two sisters tentatively began to rebuild a fragile bond, understanding that family could come from both past and present. The arrival of Clara brought hope and new challenges for their growing family. Clara's visit marked the beginning of a slow but meaningful reconciliation. Over the next few days, she helped Emily with the babies, offered emotional support, and shared stories of their childhood, reminding Emily of happier times. Though old wounds ran deep, the sisters found common ground in their shared love for the twins and a desire to protect the fragile new family. Nathan welcomed Clara cautiously, appreciating her genuine effort to support Emily, but wary of the past she represented. Together, they formed a small circle of trust, a foundation for rebuilding not just a family, but a future. Emily felt a tentative hope bloom within her, knowing she no longer had to face the challenges alone. Nathan, inspired by Emily's resilience and the strength of their newfound family, decided to launch a charitable foundation dedicated to helping single mothers and children in crisis. He shared the idea with Emily and Clara, who were touched and eager to be involved. The foundation would provide safe housing, medical care, education, and legal support for families like theirs, those overlooked by society but full of hope. Nathan threw himself into planning the foundation, using his resources and influence to create something lasting. For Emily, it was more than just survival. Now, it was a chance to give back and build a legacy of love and support. Together, they dreamed of a brighter future, not just for themselves, but for countless others. Months passed, and the foundation grew stronger, gaining support and making a real impact in the community. Emily flourished as a mother and advocate surrounded by love and security. Nathan and Emily's relationship deepened, not just as partners in a cause, but as a family united by the twins they both cherished. On a crisp autumn evening, Nathan took Emily and the babies to the Hillside Lodge where it all began. Under a sky full of stars, he promised to protect and cherish them always. Emily smiled through tears, grateful for the unlikely path that led her from despair to hope. The abandoned house on the hillside was no longer a symbol of loss. It was the beginning of a new life filled with love, strength, and endless possibilities. Just when everything seemed to settle, an unexpected letter arrived at Emily's new home. It was from her late husband's estranged brother, Marcus, a man she hadn't seen in years. The letter was polite but unsettling. He wanted to meet. Nathan, ever cautious, offered to handle the meeting himself, but Emily insisted on facing her past. They met Marcus at a local cafe. He claimed to have changed and said he wanted to be part of the twins' lives, but something in his demeanor felt off, too polished, too rehearsed. Nathan didn't trust him. Emily felt torn between hope and instinct. That night, Nathan began a quiet investigation into Marcus's intentions, determined to shield the family from any threat. Emily lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, Marcus's cold smile etched in her memory. She hadn't spoken his name in years. He had always been the dark shadow lurking in her husband's troubled past, charming on the surface but manipulative beneath. The trauma she had buried began to surface. The way Marcus had tried to control her husband, the strange disappearances of money, the threats veiled in polite words. But Emily was no longer the scared, dependent woman she once was. She had survived poverty, abandonment, and judgment. She had fought for her children in court. She had faced cameras and headlines with nothing but honesty. Now she realized something powerful. She was strong, not because of Nathan, not because of luck, but because she had refused to give up. The next morning, Emily told Nathan everything, her fears, her memories, her determination. Nathan listened, not as a billionaire, not as a protector, but as someone who admired her beyond words. "I'll stand by you," he said quietly, "but I won't stand in front of you." For the first time, Emily believed she could face Marcus and the world, not as a victim, but as a mother, a fighter, and a woman reborn. Nathan sat alone in his private study, the fireplace crackling softly. In his hands was an old photograph of his parents, smiling, young, full of life before tragedy shattered everything. His childhood had been one of silence and cold marble halls, raised by nannies and governed by contracts. After his parents died, in a car crash when he was 10, Nathan had learned to survive through logic, control, and distance. Money had become his armor, power, his escape. But since that night on the hillside, when he'd heard twin cries pierce the darkness, something inside him had changed. He thought of the baby's laughter echoing through Emily's house. He remembered the softness in her voice when she comforted them, the fire in her eyes when she stood her ground in court. She made him feel human again. For the first time in decades, Nathan didn't measure his worth in boardroom wins or billion-dollar deals. It was in the way the twins reached for him when he walked into the room. It was in the quiet trust Emily gave him, not for his wealth but for his heart. He placed the photo down and stood tall. Marcus wasn't just a threat to Emily. He was a threat to the one thing Nathan had never dared to dream of: family. And Nathan was ready to fight for it, not with money but with conviction. Marcus walked briskly through a downtown parking garage, checking his phone with growing frustration. The polite mask he wore in front of Emily was long gone now. Behind closed doors he was calculating, impatient, and angry. He hadn't expected Emily to turn him away so easily. He had counted on her desperation. But something was different. About her, stronger, sharper. And that man, Nathan, he was a problem. Marcus made a call. "Any updates?" he said into the phone. A rough voice answered. "Still digging. Nothing we can use yet. But there are whispers. Foundation money, media contracts, legal gray zones." Marcus smirked. "Good. I don't need custody. I need leverage. The babies are my ticket back into the game." He had debts, serious ones, and powerful people to pay off. The image of the billionaire and the struggling mother was making headlines. If he couldn't benefit legally, he'd do it the other way. To him, family was currency. And Emily's children were a golden opportunity. But what Marcus didn't expect was how far Emily and Nathan were willing to go to protect what they now called home. The next morning, Nathan gathered his legal team and private investigators in his home office. His tone was calm, but underneath was steel. "I want a full dossier on Marcus Alden, everything. Associates, debts, offshore activity. Leave no stone unturned." Emily stood beside him, holding a folder she had spent all night compiling. Emails, past police reports, old family letters. It wasn't just Nathan's battle, it was hers too. For years, she had avoided facing Marcus directly, afraid of what he could take from her. But not anymore. Together, they created a strategy. Legal protections for the twins, media countermeasures, and even temporary guardianship documentation, naming Nathan as co-protector of the children. Clara would serve as a witness. They also contacted a child welfare advocate to build a case that Marcus's interest in the twins was not about family. It was about control and personal gain. "This is not just defense," Nathan said, looking at Emily with fire in his eyes. "This is us taking a stand." And Emily, heart steady, replied, "He took everything from me once. He's not taking them. Not now. Not ever." They were no longer two broken people, clinging to hope. They were a family, and they were ready for war. It started with something small, an unmarked car parked near Emily's home for hours. Then a break-in at the Foundation's office. Nothing stolen, but files disturbed. Next, a threatening letter slipped under the door. "You took what wasn't yours. I'll be coming to collect." Nathan immediately increased security. Cameras were installed, guards stationed discreetly, and a 24-hour protection team assigned. To Emily and the twins, despite the danger, Emily remained composed. Her past had taught her fear, but motherhood had taught her courage. She wouldn't run, not now. But one night, as Nathan returned from a late board meeting, he found the front gate wide open. His heart dropped. The security guards had been drugged. Inside, the twins were safe, thanks to Clara's quick thinking. But a message had been left on the nursery wall. "Blood is blood, and I always get what I'm owed." It was no longer just a threat. It was personal. Nathan gripped Emily's hand tightly. "We're not reacting anymore. We end this." Emily nodded, fire in her eyes. "Let's finish what he started." Nathan and Emily knew they couldn't wait for Marcus to strike again. They needed to draw him out, on their terms. With the help of Nathan's top security expert, they devised a plan. Stage a fake legal vulnerability. A rumor that Emily was temporarily giving up custody due to emotional stress. The story would be leaked carefully to a few key media outlets known for their gossip leaks. The bait worked. Within 48 hours, Marcus reached out through a back channel. He wanted to talk terms for custody, suggesting a private meeting, but Nathan was ready. He secured the meeting in a penthouse suite wired with hidden cameras and microphones. Emily insisted on being present. Dressed plainly, no makeup, holding an old baby blanket in her hand, she walked into that room not as bait, but as bait with a purpose. Marcus arrived confident, oozing fake charm. He played the concerned uncle, but as the conversation deepened, he slipped, hinting at debts, influence, even offering to stay away for a price. It was all recorded. When Nathan walked into the room mid-conversation, Marcus froze. Too late. Every word had been captured. Every threat, every lie. Marcus realized he had been outplayed. Emily, voice calm and deadly steady, said, "You don't own us. You never will." The morning after the sting, Nathan's legal team submitted the footage to the authorities. Within hours, an arrest warrant was issued for Marcus Alden on charges of attempted blackmail, child endangerment, and conspiracy to defraud. News spread quickly. Major media outlets picked up the story, and soon the image of Marcus, once polished and charming, was plastered across headlines, now disgraced and in handcuffs. Emily watched the live news feed from her living room, her twins asleep in her arms. For the first time in years, she felt free. Marcus had controlled her through fear and threats, always lurking just beyond reach. Now he was behind bars. But even more than the legal victory, it was emotional closure. Nathan stood behind her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did this," he whispered. "Not me. You." She nodded, eyes filled with tears. "No, we did." Later that day, Nathan held a press conference, not just to clear Emily's name, but to speak on behalf of every single mother who had ever been silenced, intimidated, or overlooked. And when he introduced Emily to the world, not as a victim, but as a partner in the foundation, they received a standing ovation. The war was over, and they had won with dignity, unity, and love. Weeks passed. The air no longer carried tension, only laughter and lullabies. Emily's home, once a place of silence and survival, now overflowed with warmth. The twins had started crawling, exploring every corner with giggles that echoed through the hallways. Nathan had renovated the old abandoned house on the hillside, the very one where he first found the babies. But he didn't turn it into a monument. He turned it into something better, a safe haven for women and children escaping abuse. Emily named it Hope Hill. Clara, now fully recovered from her exhaustion and stress, had become one of the house's first volunteers. Her bond with the twins was unbreakable, and her faith in the world had returned. One golden afternoon, Nathan surprised Emily with a small picnic outside the renovated house. No cameras, no headlines, just them, the twins, and peace. As they sat on a blanket overlooking the valley, Emily leaned into Nathan's shoulder. "I never thought we'd get here." He smiled. "We're not just here, Emily. We're home." The sun dipped behind the hills, casting a soft glow over the place where hope was reborn from ruin. And for the first time in their lives, they weren't surviving. They were living. 1 year later. The grand opening of Hope Hill Foundation was more than a ceremony. It was a celebration of survival, resilience, and love. Families gathered in the courtyard. Children ran through the garden paths. Volunteers in pale blue shirts guided new residents into warm, sunlit rooms. Emily stood at the podium, a microphone in her hand, her voice steady. "There was a time when I thought the world had forgotten people like me. A time when all I had was fear and 2 hungry babies in my arms. But someone found me, not because I was important, but because I mattered." She turned, smiling at Nathan, who stood at the edge of the crowd holding the twins, now walking. "And that moment didn't just save my children. It saved me." Thunderous applause followed. Later, as the guests dispersed, Nathan took her hand and walked her to a quiet bench beneath the old oak tree near the house. "Do you remember the first time we saw them?" he asked. "I remember the cold," Emily said with a soft laugh, "and how their cries felt louder than the night. But we heard them," Nathan replied, "and we answered." They sat in silence, watching their twins chase butterflies across the grass. In a world that often turned its back on the vulnerable, they had chosen to stop, to kneel, to lift. And because of that, a broken house on a lonely hill had become a home. A stranger had become a father. A mother had found her. Voice and 2 babies, left to be forgotten, had become the heart of a new beginning. It was a quiet autumn morning when a letter, unsigned, unaddressed, arrived at the front gate of Hope Hill. Emily opened it with curiosity at first, but as she read the words, her breath caught. What you built is beautiful, but beauty attracts shadows. Watch the hills. Nathan, now busier than ever with expansion plans and new partnerships, tried to dismiss it as a prank, but Emily felt a familiar chill in her spine. The handwriting, it felt hauntingly familiar. But Marcus was in prison, wasn't he? Meanwhile, the twins had just started preschool. Their laughter still rang like sunshine, but something in the wind had changed. Clara sensed it too. She began sleeping with a flashlight under her pillow again. Hope Hill had given life to many. But something or someone was watching from the trees again. That night, as twilight swallowed the hillside, Nathan reviewed the security footage of the day. He wasn't expecting to find anything, but then he saw it. At 3:17 a.m., for exactly 12 seconds, the motion sensor light near the northern trail flicked on. The camera caught the silhouette of a figure standing at the tree line, still, watching. No movement, no approach, but it was no animal. Nathan tightened his jaw. He didn't want to alarm Emily yet, but he immediately doubled the perimeter patrol and assigned 2 guards to discreet night rotation. Meanwhile, Emily walked the twins to their first art class in the community center built behind Hope Hill. She smiled, talked with other mothers, but her eyes constantly flicked to the windows, to the woods beyond. That night, she found a second note, tucked beneath the twins' coloring books. They don't know the whole story, but I do. Let's finish it. Panic rose in her chest. She took it straight to Nathan. He read it twice, then looked up at her with calm intensity. We need to talk to Marcus. Emily's eyes widened. But he's in prison, Nathan nodded slowly. Then we better find out if he's still talking to the outside world, or if someone else has picked up where he left off. 2 days. Later, Nathan and Emily arrived at Gray Ridge Penitentiary, a cold concrete fortress lost between hills and storm clouds. It was the first time Emily had seen Marcus since the trial. She almost turned back at the gate, but Nathan took her hand. We face it together. Marcus looked older, paler, but his eyes still glinted with the same venomous charm. When he saw Emily, he smirked. Did you miss me, sister-in-law? Emily didn't flinch. Someone's watching us, sending messages, you know who. Marcus chuckled. Oh, dear Emily. You think you ended the fire by cutting off one spark? His tone darkened. There are others. I owed a lot of people. You stole their prize. They're coming for it. Nathan leaned forward. Names. Now. But Marcus only smiled, stood up and whispered, Hope Hill won't stand forever, and neither will your peace. The guards pulled him away, but before the door slammed, he turned and called out, Watch the woman with the white rose. She's already inside. Emily froze. The words echoed in her head like thunder. That night, she walked past the garden near the community center. Dozens of flowers bloomed, but only one white rose had been placed on the welcome bench, and nobody knew who left it. The next morning, Emily scanned the volunteer logs from the last 2 weeks. She noticed something odd. A new name that didn't match any of the original background checks, Isla Varin. She had only signed in 3 times, and each time was during unstructured activities, art therapy, gardening, and child reading hour. Harmless roles, but no phone number, no references. Emily asked Clara if she had seen Isla. Clara frowned. I think she helped the twins paint a butterfly mural, wore a wide white scarf and sunglasses. Beautiful but distant. I thought she was a donor. Emily's heart dropped. That scarf, the color, the silence. She ran to the mural room. The twins had painted with bright colors, blue, green, yellow, but someone had added a single rose in the background. White, too precise to be a child's hand. Nathan's head of security reviewed footage. The woman had avoided every camera, except one. A single still showed a tall, graceful figure in white placing a bag down beside the twins' table. The bag was gone now. That night, when Nathan returned from a meeting in the city, he found Emily in the nursery watching the twins sleep. She was close to them, Emily whispered, right next to them, and we never saw her coming. Nathan clenched his fists. That ends now. Nathan activated a full background trace on the alias Isla Varen. Within 12 hours, his cybersecurity specialist called him. There's no birth certificate, no official ID, but the name appears twice, once in an offshore bank account, tied to Marcus, and once in an old hospital record, mental institution under a different name, Isabel Vaughn. Emily's blood ran cold. Isabel Vaughn was Marcus's first fiancée. Years ago, she had suffered a psychotic break after a scandal involving illegal fertility trials Marcus funded, and was quietly sent away. Everyone assumed she had vanished, but now she was back, and she was walking inside Hope Hill with white roses and haunting silence. Emily looked at a photo from the old trial. Isabel was stunning, with fierce blue eyes and a calm, unreadable expression. She lost everything because of him, Emily whispered, and now maybe she thinks the twins are hers. Nathan's face hardened. She's not just angry, she's obsessed. That night, the twins woke up crying. Both said the same thing. The lady in white said she'd take us to her house on the hill. Emily froze. Nathan checked every lock, every sensor, every guard post. Nothing. But on the twins' windowsill, someone had left a small glass butterfly, identical to the one they had painted with Isla. At 2:13 a.m., the silent alarm tripped in. The east wing of Hope Hill, Nathan was the first to respond. He stormed into the hallway with 2 guards. The security feed had just enough footage, a figure in white slipping past the library entrance, then vanishing. No broken windows, no forced doors. But on the floor of the nursery hallway, someone had dropped a small velvet pouch. Inside, 2 antique silver rattles, not from Hope Hill, not from any nursery. These belonged to the twins' biological birth records, items that had been locked away since the day they were rescued. Emily stared at them, pale. She's been in our personal archive. Nathan issued a full lockdown. No one in, no one out. Isla was still inside, or had someone helping her from within. The children were moved to the secure north quarters. Emily and Clara took turns guarding the twins through the night. Then came the final blow. In the early morning light, security found a message scrawled across the nursery wall in neat red ink. You gave them my name. Now I'll take them back. Emily collapsed to her knees. Nathan stood frozen, feeling the weight of the truth. Isla thought the twins were hers, and she had crossed every line to take them back. Nathan summoned the entire internal staff to the conference hall. His voice was calm but steel-laced every word. There has been a breach. Someone let her in. Gasps rippled across the room. Emily scanned each face, teachers, caretakers, volunteers. One woman stood at the back, arms crossed too tightly. Lena, a quiet new assistant in the medical wing. Clara leaned toward Emily and whispered, "She's never spoken more than 5 words to me. But I've seen her talking on the phone alone, in Russian." Nathan's team pulled Lena's personnel file. It was clean. Too clean. When security quietly searched her quarters, they found a hidden phone and several photos of the twins tucked inside a medical folder labeled Vaughn Project, Cycle 2. Emily stared at the file in horror. Cycle 2? That's fertility research. That's the trial Marcus ran. Nathan pieced it together. These babies were never just random victims. Marcus and Isla used them, experimented, then abandoned the project. Isla must think they're the only living results. Lena was arrested that afternoon. She refused to speak a word except, "She'll come for them herself. You can't stop her." Emily looked out the window. The wind moved through the hills. Like breath. Something was coming. Someone. Emily and Nathan sat in the secure records room surrounded by boxes never meant to be opened again. Inside one file was a grainy photo, 2 newborns in a sterile lab, marked only as Subject A and Subject B. No names, just dates. Another document detailed a failed trial from Marcus's secret foundation, long before he was arrested. The report confirmed it. Cycle 2 has yielded the first viable genetic matches, twins, transferred anonymously to external care facility after shutdown. Emily's hands shook. "These babies, they weren't abandoned," she whispered. "They were discarded like test subjects." Nathan swallowed hard. "We saved them from an experiment, not a tragedy." Then came the second shock. A final. Folder included a scanned handwritten note, likely Isla's. "They are mine. I gave my body to science. They took my eggs. They created my children. I was promised a family. And then they vanished them." Clara entered the room, pale. "We just caught a signal ping from the twins' medical bracelets. It's coming from inside the woods, near the old foundation ruins." Emily's heart stopped. "They're still here. She's already taken them." Nathan shouted to the guards. Alarms blared. But the nursery was empty. Both twins, gone. On their beds, 2 white rose petals and a final note. "I am only taking back what is mine. Isla." The siren screamed across Hope Hill as guards fanned out in all directions. But Nathan didn't wait. He grabbed a flashlight and his sidearm. Emily, refusing to stay behind, followed. Clara stayed back to coordinate drones and tracking. The bracelet. Signal led them into the abandoned ruins of Marcus's first illegal clinic. Burned years ago. Buried in ivy and memory. Trees had overtaken the land, but the twisted steel and ash beneath still reeked of secrets. They found the first sign near. The broken front steps. A child's drawing. Of a woman in white holding 2 smiling children. Emily pressed it to her chest, fighting tears. She thinks she's giving them back a home. They entered the ruins. Floorboards cracked, glass crunched beneath boots. Suddenly, Nathan heard it. A lullaby. Off-key. Echoing through stone. Emily followed the sound down a long hallway. At the end, she found them, the twins, sitting quietly on a cot surrounded by candles. In the corner stood Isla, dressed all in white, her arms outstretched. Whispered, "They're calm now. They feel me. They remember me." Emily stepped forward, trembling. "You were hurt, betrayed, but this won't fix it." Isla smiled with tears in her eyes. "They are mine by blood, and no paper, no billionaire, no wall can rewrite that." Nathan raised his weapon slowly. "Isla, step away." She didn't move. But the twins suddenly turned, not toward her, but toward Emily. One reached out, calling softly, "Mama?" Isla's smile faltered. Reality cracked. The twins reached for Emily, their small voices barely whispers. "Mama, come!" Isla froze, eyes wide, as if she had been stabbed. She looked down at her own hands, shaking. "I carried them in my mind for years. In the dark. They were all I had." Emily took a cautious step forward. "You were used. You were a victim. But they're not science anymore. They're children, and they chose love." Isla collapsed to her knees. Nathan lowered his weapon. No one moved. Tears streamed down Isla's cheeks. She pulled something from her coat, a syringe. "If I can't have them, I won't let them be anyone's project." Nathan lunged. "No!" But Isla didn't stab the children. She injected it into herself. She fell instantly, convulsing. Emily screamed. Nathan grabbed her, checking Isla's pulse. It was fading fast. With her final breath, Isla whispered to Emily, "Keep them free. Keep them whole. Don't let them forget me." And then she was gone. Silence returned to the ruins, except for the wind rustling the ivy overhead. Back at Hope Hill, the twins clung to Emily and Nathan, not speaking for hours. Later that night, Clara entered the nursery to find Emily placing 2 white roses in a small jar on the windowsill. "They'll know someday," Emily whispered, "about Isla, about how pain can twist love, and how we must choose to heal." Nathan stood beside her, "And they'll know who saved them twice.